We had another rumor this past week as well that we do need to bring up. And I wanted to bring this up real quick too, Renee. So yesterday, there is a Club Leon, or I'm sorry, last week there was a Club Leon Twitter account called Territorio Esmeralda, which in English translates to territory, Emerald Territory. All right. So they tweeted out last week that there has been legitimate talks about their player, El Diente Lopez, who's a forward. There has been interest from Fluminense and Vasco da Gama from Brazil. There's been a
Mhm.
couple other Mexican teams, but they threw in one MLS squad, and that was the Philadelphia Union, which was intriguing because we don't get thrown into these type of rumors typically.
Mhm.
Now, Diente Lopez is a little bit of an older player, guys. We do know that. But he does seem to be a flexible player that can play in different positions in the attack there. But he is 30 years old. So that's like the one thing where it's like that's not typically where the Union steer, right? They like
Mm.
more early 20s. They obviously like young players. They want to develop those type players. But I tweeted out that I think that this is where the Union should kind of go. I don't think they're going to pursue. I don't think they will pursue
Yeah.
Diente Lopez, but that's the type of player that I want him to bring. 30-year-old. It seemed like this guy knows how to score the ball. He has that dog in him. I just like his mental build, the way that
Mhm.
he's kind of plays. But it was interesting, Renee, because I love getting in these discourses on Twitter. There seems to be a confliction with the fan base.
Yeah.
There is a group of the fan base that agrees with what I feel, that this team right now needs a forward more than
Mhm.
anything else. And there is a contingency within this fan base that believes that we should go with defender.
Right.
So that's where we're going to kind of open the debate to here, and people can chime in the comment section. But I thought that was interesting because for me, it just feels like, yeah, the defense is a problem right now. There's no denying that. But
Mhm.
I feel like that can be fixed. I think that they can turn that around. The
Mhm.
attack is good, but how good is it? And that's a question that I've had since even that MLS Cup run, which I know they were killing it in the summer, but we saw what happened in the MLS Cup final there. So, look, this is going to be the question that we're going to be asking yourselves. What should the Union do with buying players? Obviously, we know they typically are limited with with money that they spend to buy players because it's just who we are. But where should we spend the money, Renee?
Yeah.
That's a debate.
JP, going back to your Twitter conversation or your X conversation that you were
That sounds
having this
bad.
past weekend, I know, is should it be a forward or should it be a defender? And I kind of go back and forth on this one. If they could only pick one, because that's the other thing. Realistically, what could happen is maybe you do spend a little bit less and you bring in two pieces, and it's an attacker and it's a defender.
Uh-huh.
Similar to what they brought in with an Oliver Zemla, Marcus Anderson, maybe a little bit more ready now. Again, has been fine. He just has been injured.
Mhm.
Oliver has been fine. So maybe around that caliber of a player that's going to come in and compete for a starting spot and be able to help from the jump. Doesn't need time. Isn't so young that they're going to be a Union 2 player in terms of development. Ideally, that's what I would love. A deal where you bring in two. But if they can only bring in one, JP,
Okay.
what would be your one if you had to choose between a position that you feel like is most pressing for the Philadelphia Union that they need to have as an addition? And I know, George, you're joining us from the
What's up,
Flyers
George?
pod. So you just were there with JP
He's hanging out
and
with me.
Charlie on the Flyers pod. Welcome over. We're talking about the Philadelphia Union. We were already discussing Julian Carranza and the future for him with the team. Now moving forward for the Union, who have been struggling to win games. They've been able to only have one win in the last 10 games. Something's got to change. If we're looking ahead to the summer transfer window, which position do they need most right now?
So I want to start off by saying this. I understand the contingency of the fan base that wants a defenseman. Look,
Okay.
defense overall for this team has not been good as of late. It's just alarming numbers, especially when you consider the Ernst and Jim era of the Union soccer. You know, it's unacceptable, quite honestly. I understand that, but I think that I've seen enough from both sides to understand that I think that this team right now needs an attacker. And I think the defense will be fine. I think the bigger problem, obviously, look, we haven't had consistency from,
Mm-hmm.
your 2022 MLS Defensive Player of the Year in Gleznes. Elliott, as of late, has come on strong. Obviously, low now with international break. I mean, he's had some in the starts that he's been in there. I've actually liked what he's given to. Kai Wagner and Harriel are solid too. But I think that overall, it's just been a team. It's been a team issue, right? I think
Yeah.
that they haven't played as a cohesive unit as a team. That's why the defense has been flawed. I think that can be fixed. I think that has a better shot of being fixed. Now, the attack, though, my gripe with the attack has always been I know they can score goals. I know everyone likes to throw the stats at me. I get that. I know the goals that they score in the regular season, but that's the point. What do those goals translate into the playoffs? And that's been my point the whole
Mm,
time. And so, like, when we're talking about what this team needs to go find, I think it's very simple for me. They need to find an attacker who can score goals in the clutch. And I've always talked about it, Renee. Like, it doesn't have to. I know the team likes to buy kids in their early 20s, right? Like that's where they love to. That's a bread and butter. That's where they like
yeah.
to go find those players. But it doesn't hurt to find a veteran guy and a guy that if you need him in a clutch situation can help you score a goal or create a goal scoring
Hmm.
opportunity. And I want some versatility. That's why I brought up the Diente Lopez stuff. I don't know how legitimate that rumor is, but I think that's a great recipe for what you're trying to look for when you're trying to continue filling out this attack. I know, like, look, we brought it up. We brought up Ua with Seba, and I thought Seba brought up some really good
He
points.
did.
The injury thing is legit, and I sympathize with that. I get that, but in now almost 3 seasons of just a workload that we've been able to see, I haven't seen anything to think that wow, this guy is deserving of that contract. This is the guy who's going to lead the charge for 5 seasons of the Union attack. I haven't felt that ever. I feel like Ua does some really good stuff. I don't think he's great at anything, and I don't think he's lived up to what we thought he would be. And so, like, just for that matter alone, I think the attack is just a glaring need right now.
Mm.
And again, when come playoff time, what is this going to look like? And that's kind of where my headspace is at. The Diente Lopez stuff got me a little excited, but I think right now, and again, I want to raise this to the fan base. If you guys feel like we need a defenseman, let us know. But I think right now, Renee, this team needs an attacker more than a defenseman.
Hmm. It is interesting because it does. You have to wonder like which is causing the biggest issue. Is it the inability to put teams away offensively that's putting more stress on the defense? Is it the defense's inability to get a clean sheet, get stops that's causing the pressure on the offense? And then there's other variables. The fact, as you talk about, Andre Blake hasn't been healthy this season. The back four in general has had a lot of different iterations, and there's been a ton of inconsistency there. And that does play a huge factor into it.
Yeah.
As a defense throughout your 11, it's really dependent on how consistent you are, how much you can be on the same page, because it's a lot of understanding, help defense, pressure cover, getting organized. Like defending is not as much of a technical, I should say, ability as much as it is more of a tactical and more of a mental side. Scoring goals is more technical. That's more, being better, being creative, having better touches, better moves, better runs. You can be a really average player and be a great defender if you can read the game well, if you can anticipate well. So I do see the value of not changing the defense. The other side of it is I think defensively there are already options that can help fix things. So obviously getting Andre Blake healthy is one that can help fix things. But even if you switch to a 3-back system, if you switch to 4, if you maybe are playing a 3-5-2 or a 4 versus a 4-3-3, like depending on what the formation looks like, also slotting in, maybe it's Damian Lowe drop playing more alongside Jack Elliott, and Glesnes is not getting as many minutes, or Mbaizo's not really. He does well, but the outside back role with Nate and Kai, I almost said Kate. Nate and Kai is
Caitlin
pretty
Clark is
locked
the
in.
starting
Yeah,
striker for
whatever.
the
They're
Union
the same person. So that's the other issue is like defensively, if you were to bring someone in, who are you bringing in? Who are you moving? Like which position are you feeling is the weak spot that you have to change? Because I feel like Nate and Kai have been doing well offensively. I do think defensively they haven't been great with their organization though. Like I think they keep getting caught out of position. But again, I wonder if that's due to the injuries, inconsistency, not having the center backs and your keeper locked in as your usual leaders. So I also feel like I'm going to go midfield. I'm going to just stick with what my usual answer is because I think this team is still missing that true, I hate to say that true 10 with Daniel Gazdag, but that true center midfielder. I think that when you look across the league, in terms of I have the stats up here. I want to just read some of them off. In terms of shots, the Union are actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, top 6 in shots across the league. In terms of shots on target, they're also in that top 6 or 7. In terms of goals scored, the Union are top 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 9. They are also, in terms of corner kicks, top 10. In terms of expected goals, top 10. You know, they're in the top half of the league in a number of offensive categories. They are creating. They are getting into the attacking third. They're not finishing. And to your point, I know you always talk about UA, JP. Someone like UA, Quinn Sullivan, even Jack McGlynn, they're not finishers yet.
Mm-hmm.
Julian Carranza and Daniel Gazdag are finishers. Mm-hmm. And I think they could use a true center midfielder that is a finisher, but also can help. I just picture in my mind, and I can't think of a name off the top of my head, but I'm just going to describe a player that has height to them, that's strong, that can move well and is agile, that can help in transition defending, but also help in transition getting forward and be that player. I think part of it is come in and get assists, come in and get goals. Like, come in and just get stats because
so you
are
Jude
setting.
Bellingham from Real Madrid, that big body.
Yeah, basically. And by big, I don't mean like you don't have to be like 6'6", but like a no knock on some of the players for the Union and El Brujo and different guys, but be like 6'2", 6'3", in the prime of your career, where you're not too old, not too young, and have good pace and literally can help them control the tempo. Because I do feel like part of the reason they're not able to finish is some of those final runs, passes, and shots are rushed and not as polished.
Okay.
You know, they're shooting a lot. They're getting in the attacking third a lot, but I don't think it's composed and poised enough. I would love to have that composed, poised, true midfielder, I should say, that does it all. That just fills in the blanks, that just covers, that just makes the runs, that's spraying balls in a good places. And I don't know who that is, so I'm just painting the picture of what the player looks and plays like. But I think that's actually what's more important, because if you have the right center midfielder, they can help the UAs, Quinn Sullivans, Jack McGlynn's continue to help Danny and Julian score goals. I don't know.
Gotcha.
We all silly like the mayor.